Thank you, Jeff. Good morning, fellow delegates, staff, and guests. It is so good to be here with you today. Last weekend, I had the opportunity to travel to a certain city up north and cheer on the football Buckeyes to another victory over our rival. And while I was there in that sea of 110,000, as our team in scarlet and gray kept scoring touchdown after touchdown after touchdown, I pretty much lost my voice. And I know that wasn't the best of timing going into this week of the RA, and it was a bit ironic given how important the idea of voice is in our proceedings today and in our work together as public education professionals and union members. So I'll ask you to please bear with me. I think I'm doing better, but we'll get through this. We've had all too much experience lately of having to struggle to make our voices heard. Corporate-funded anti-union forces like the Buckeye Institute and Freedom Foundation are doing all they can through the courts, online, and even at our doorsteps to force us to be silent. Can you believe the gall of using the guise of freedom to silence our voices? They're hoping the Supreme Court's Janus decision will weaken our power so they can eliminate us as the biggest barrier to their anti-worker, pro-privatization agenda. Encouraged by, Digna, Betsy DeVos at the U.S. Department of Education, certain hyper-conservative members of Ohio's General Assembly have been working tirelessly to make our jobs more difficult by using standardized tests to label, blame, and shame public schools and educators in order to justify diverting precious taxpayer resources to failing charter schools and out-of-control voucher programs. Vouchers are expected to cost local school districts nearly $350 million this year, and that number continues to rise. Many of those dollars are lining the pockets of wealthier families who have never sent their children to public schools and never intended to. If you thought ECOT was a cash grab, look out for what's turning out to be a massive shift of resources away from public education and the 90% of Ohio's children served in our schools. Brothers and sisters, despite all their money and shady schemes, our opponents can't silence our voices. As long as we fight, they will never be able to overcome all that gives us the upper hand. We are the right people, standing up for the right cause at the right time. United, more than 122,000 of us, teachers, counselors, school secretaries, custodians, psychologists, case managers, professors, resource officers, food service workers, bus drivers, professionals who work every day on the front lines of public education cannot be stopped. When we lift our voices together, we build collective power. And when we exercise that power, we protect the future of our students. Every few years, OEA commissions a poll to find out how members feel about their jobs, the direction of public education in our state, and their connection to their union. Based on what they've told us recently, members continue to find satisfaction in their work with students, but they're extremely frustrated about where things are headed. 62% feel that things for public school employees have changed for the worse compared to 3 or 4 years ago, as opposed to only 7% who feel things have changed for the better. Members point to the overemphasis on standardized testing, lack of funding, and growing concerns about student behavioral issues as reasons for their frustration. Topping the list of concerns is the sense that politicians and non-educators are making decisions that affect our work in classrooms without understanding what we do, without listening to our voices. A whopping 92% of members indicate this is a very serious or extremely serious problem. It's no wonder, considering just how much political decisions affect our working and learning conditions. Virtually every aspect of our careers, from class size to licensure requirements to learning standards, are determined by elected or appointed officials. What particularly struck me about the poll results is another frustration that's high on the list: lack of respect. 72% of respondents said they believe the lack of respect the public has for the teaching profession is a very serious or extremely serious problem. That's despite public polling that actually indicates the opposite. The reality is teachers are consistently among the most trusted people among various professions in our nation. Most parents think their children's educators are doing a good job. And 74% of the public supports teachers who strike for higher pay. Public support for labor unions is near a 50-year high, and in Ohio's most recent election, 73% of all school levy and bond issues passed. So why this disconnect between strong evidence of public support and frustration over lack of respect? The answer lies in the ever-growing challenges educators face in today's schools. I hear every day from colleagues who are tired of being overwhelmed by more and more students coming to school having experienced trauma at home and lacking support for their basic needs. Tired of threats to safety and security from gun violence and from other students who have been traumatized or neglected. Tired of being buried by paperwork and data demands when they just want time to teach. That's right. It might be tempting to give up when feeling these frustrations, but I'm reminded that throughout the history of the labor movement, and indeed in all struggles for justice, dissatisfaction has been the seed for change. A century ago, dissatisfaction over long hours and unsafe working conditions led garment workers to unite and win health and safety protections that ultimately benefited all of us. Just last month, dissatisfaction with a disrespectful governor who wanted to gut their pensions led to our fellow association members in Kentucky to make their voices heard and deny that guy a second term. When we're angry, we fight. And when we fight, we win. But we have to fight. Frederick Douglass devoted his entire life to fighting for justice. Speaking about the scourge of slavery as the Civil War approached in 1857, he gave one of his most famous speeches in which he said, "If there is no struggle, there is no progress. Those who profess to favor freedom yet deprecate agitation are men who want crops without plowing up the ground. They want rain without thunder and lightning. They want the ocean without the awful roar of its many waters. This struggle may be a moral one, or it may be a physical one, and it may be both moral and physical. But it must be a struggle. Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did, and it never will." Ladies and gentlemen, we have a voice, and we gain power when we're in the struggle together. We've seen our fellow educators win crucial victories for fair pay through statewide walkouts in West Virginia, Arizona, Oklahoma, Colorado, and elsewhere as the Red for Ed movement has taken hold across this nation. Let me tell you, long before Red for Ed, and decades before collective bargaining was the law in this state, OEA members were leading the same fight for fair pay with courageous walkouts, starting with the very first teacher strike in Talmadge in 1966. Our fight for the schools our students deserve is waged local by local, from Ravenna to South Point, East Cleveland to Reynoldsburg, Columbus to Fostoria, with the resources that come from being part of a strong, unified, statewide union. I'm inspired by stories of union organizing throughout history that gave voice to the voiceless through collective action. I had the recent good fortune to join some of you for a Cleveland City Club speech by Stephen Greenhouse, who has written extensively on these struggles. And he recounted the Memphis sanitation strike of 1968, when hundreds of mostly African-American men who, having endured years of disrespect, poverty wages, and abhorrent working conditions, joined together to stand up for their manhood and win a union contract. He shares the story of Korean War veteran Elmore Nickelberry, who came home from fighting for his country to a job that was humbling, to say the least. Everybody called us boy, including all the supervisors who were white. You tell them, I ain't no boy, I'm a man. And they'd keep calling you boy. Greenhouse writes that Nickelberry was a tub toter. His job was to go into people's backyards, transfer their garbage into a 17-gallon round plastic tub, and then carry the tub to the truck in the street. Sanitation workers frequently filled their tubs with 30, even 40 pounds of garbage, often carrying the tubs on the back or their shoulders, often on the top of their heads. Because the tubs got banged around, there would often be holes in the tub, and the garbage and maggots would crawl down their back and onto their clothes. They weren't provided showers after their sweaty days hauling garbage, so you can only imagine what the other bus riders thought of them as they made their way home after a long day at work. On February 1st, 1968, Ecole Cole and Robert Walker were crushed to death due to a truck malfunction caused by management neglect. This spurred 1,144 of the city's 1,330 sanitation workers to stage a 65-day strike, during which they suffered untold beatings and macings by the local police. It was during this strike, you might remember, that Dr. Martin Luther King was shot dead in Memphis, as the civil rights and labor rights movements converged during one of the most terrible times of upheaval in American history. But in the end, solidarity prevailed and a union contract was won. Nickelberry spelled out the benefits that the contract and union had brought the workers. He said, with the union, we got a good raise, we got showers, we got better working conditions, we got health benefits. But the biggest thing the union won was dignity. The union came in and we got respect. They stopped calling us boy. And they started calling us a man, a sanitation man. Reflecting on his experience 50 years after the strike, Nickelberry said, the more people you have in a union, the more you get. They can talk for you more than you can talk for yourself. He was talking about voice. We have a lot of battles to fight right now. Battles for respect, battles for fairer funding, battles to restore the joy of learning to our classrooms. Jeff's going to expound on how we're currently waging a number of these fights in the legislature this afternoon. But one I'd like to highlight now is the need to fix Ohio's broken report card system. As you know, every year, educators in districts and school buildings across the state feel immense pressure to get test scores up, focusing attention especially on so-called bubble kids, in order to avoid the dreaded D or F rating on the annual report card. Those letter grades have immense impact. They signal to parents and community members how schools are doing, and thereby influence where families choose to buy homes and send their kids to school. Low ratings also lead to concrete sanctions that allow brick and mortar charters to open in the neighborhood, offering taxpayer voucher funds to families who elect to send their children to private schools, and even justifying state takeovers that include loss of school board representation and elimination of educators' collective bargaining rights. You and I both know that these report card ratings are a sham. With so much emphasis on test scores, they consistently tell us what we already know, that high-wealth districts get high grades and low-wealth districts get low ones. According to a Cleveland.com analysis of the most recent report cards, family incomes in A-rated districts were 3 times higher than those in F-rated districts. And the child poverty rate was 13 times higher in the lowest-rated districts compared to the highest-rated ones. Our schools are being penalized for their poverty, and that must stop. We had a fantastic team of teachers, education support professionals, and OEA staff members who accompanied Jeff, Mark, and me to Atlanta in September for NEA's Educator Voice Academy, where we collaborated on strategies to ensure our voices are heard as the federal Every Student Succeeds Act is implemented in our state. Our team decided that the best way to make needed change quickly was to revamp the report card system. And that led to the development of the new business item that you're going to be considering this afternoon. We have a chance to take the lead and make our voices heard loudly and clearly that school accountability should be focused on learning and opportunities for student success and on identifying ways for the state to support and lift up schools with challenges, not punish them. Fellow delegates, acting on the new business item is only the first step. After we leave this hall today, I am counting on each of you to take action and make your voices heard to demand that legislators scrap the current report card and adopt one that reflects what we know best about the needs of our students. I need you on this. So before I conclude, allow me to share one last observation about our member poll. OEA members strongly approve of the job their state and local associations are doing, and the overwhelming majority express no interest in leaving our union. They know that together they have support, protection, and power they can't find on their own. I'm confident we're going to turn our dissatisfaction into less testing, more funding, better report cards, and safer schools, because there are several fundamental truths working in our favor, even beyond public support. Our dedication to student success drives all that we do, giving us a just and noble cause. Our expertise in our classrooms and work sites means we don't have to wait for others to solve our problems. And the strength of our union, more than 122,000 members strong, makes us a cohesive force no one else can match. Let me hear your voices, OEA. Let our opponents hear our voices. Let our fellow educators hear our voices. Let our students hear our voices. Brothers and sisters, when we fight, we win. Thank you.